One of the most critical skills for a cloud engineer is to master logging in the cloud. But logging from one resource is all well and good, but what do we do when we need to capture logs for a huge enterprise with thousands of resources? In this video, I will make sure you know everything you need to know about mastering logging in Microsoft Azure. That goes from capturing logs, showing how to manipulate logs, build alerts and log queries so you can find what you need. Here's the outline of what we're going to do in this video. As step 1, you can see we need to create an Azure Log Analytics workspace so we have somewhere to send logs to. And then I will reveal the next steps to you as we go. And in the end, we do have a bonus tip, so make sure you watch until the end to find out what that is. Getting kind of good at this YouTube stuff. My name is Carl Lindberg. I'm a Microsoft MVP within Microsoft Azure. I focus heavily on infrastructure as code, but I work every day in cloud environments and I deal with things from monitoring to logging to permissions to anything you can think of. So today I want to give you my insights on logging, and hopefully you're going to walk away from this video being much smarter about logging in cloud. So first off, we do have a Terraform project where we've deployed a resource group. We've also deployed a key vault. And key vault is a good example for this because that's something that you are going to want to be interested in tracking, who is listing secrets, who is manipulating, deleting or creating new secrets, who is reading secrets and keys and all of those things. So this is a resource where logs are, I shouldn't say extra important, but very important. We do want somewhere to send this. And the first thing we have to do for that is we have to create a Log Analytics workspace. So we are actually going to go ahead and define that here. Workspace. We want to set the type to Operational Insights Workspaces. A little bit hidden. The name, I usually prefix this with log. So we are going to do log environment location short, which is Sweden Central. And by the way, I've set up these variables, so I'm using the environment, location, and location short, as well as Azure subscription ID. And I have a dev.tfrs, which I'm going to use for deployment of this. So we're making use of some string interpolation. I want to place this in the resource group I've already defined, and the location, it's fine to grab that from the resource group itself. So we have to define some properties. The SKU. First of all, we're gonna put per gigabyte 2018. It's just some standard things. We don't need to set any capacity, but this could be something that would be good for you if you want to limit how much log ingestion happens into the Log Analytics workspace, which is good for keeping the costs down. The next thing we want to set is we have a few different things. So we have retention in days. So if you don't do anything with logs, I'm pretty sure that like the activity logs and some audit logs get stored for like 30 days as default, depending on the resource obviously. But here we can say we want to store all the logs that get sent to our workspace. It's going to be stored for 90 days. We could set this longer. This depends on the customer and if there are any regulatory compliance demands that tells you that you have to have it for longer or shorter. I think that's all I want to set for now. We do want to say schema validation enabled false. So I think I'm happy with this for now, so I just want to make sure that I deploy this solution. So we want to run a Terraform plan, and we're going to say we're going to use the variable file that we created, or that I created. So this wants to create all the resources. For the sake of video, you and I are going to pretend like we already deployed the key vault and the resource group, and we are just deploying the Log Analytics workspace right now. You have to play pretend sometimes, it's just what happens. So we're gonna want to say that we want to run apply. Again, we have to say which variable file we're working with, and I'm also gonna say auto approve. So my deployment is successful. I have a key vault and I have my Log Analytics workspace. And if we click into this, we can click on tables. Right now, you can see we have a few like default tables, but we don't have the ones we're looking for right now. And if I were to go into the logs, if I run, for example, Azure Diagnostics, I'm not getting anything. If I run audit logs, I'm not getting anything. I mean, that's because this is a new workspace, but also we are not instructing anything to send any logs here, and that's something you have to do as an Azure administrator. You're not just going to magically have logs appear. That's something you have to configure, and that's something you can do in the resource. If I go into my Key Vault here, and I do have in the left pane here, I have something called diagnostic settings. If I look at this, I am not defining any diagnostic settings right now, but I do have the possibility to send audit logs, Azure policy evaluation details, and metrics to somewhere. If we just click add diagnostic setting, you can see we have a few different places where we could send them. So I can send them to a Log Analytics workspace, I could send it to a storage account, I could send it to an event hub. Maybe I want to act on certain logs, so that could be an integration with Event Hub. Or I send it to a partner solution, like maybe I'm using Splunk or something like that to deal with logs. But we want to have a diagnostic setting basically. So that's something we can define in our code as well. So we're going to say diagnostic settings Key Vault, right? So we're going to say the type is a diagnostic setting, and be sure to use the one for Microsoft Insights. The name here, I usually set this to like set by code, or you could have a better name. This is a little bit of a hidden thing, so it's not a name you see super often. So the parent ID is key here. This is a resource that is appended. It's like a child resource, but it's not a child resource really. But since we say parent ID and we point to the Key Vault here, it knows that this diagnostic setting is going to get added to this Key Vault, and we use the resource ID so we don't add it to the wrong Key Vault. Then we are going to define a body here with some properties, and an important thing is we have to specify workspace ID, and again we want to use this reference to the resource we have already created. So we have AC API resource log analytics workspace ID, and then we have to say, okay, what logs are we going to send, and this is a list of objects. So we do have some required properties here for log settings. We can append those, and that's just the one. So we want to say it's true. And the only thing we have to do here is we can say category group, and we're going to say audits. So category groups are what we saw in the portal. In the portal here we have category groups. So if I were to click audit, I'm going to get everything that has to do with audit basically. So it would be the same if I did all logs here and I did all metrics. I would get all the metrics, but different resources would have more or less categories that you could use, and they can get slotted into category groups. For us, I think this is pretty fine. So we're going to set schema validation enable to false, and let's see if we can apply this. We're going to clear this and say that we want to run a plan again. So it looks promising. It wants to create a diagnostic setting. The parent ID I'm looking for here is pointing towards our Key Vault, and the workspace ID is also pointing to the workspace that we created. So let's run apply. So that was successful. So let's come out of this one and do a refresh. You can see we have a set by code. So now if we click edit settings on this one, we can see we're using the audit category group and we're sending the logs to our Log Analytics workspace. So now we are actually making use of our workspace. By the way, this is good info for you. I am using diagnostic settings on the resource itself, and I'm sending this to a Log Analytics workspace, but I could have more. So you can see here, you may create up to 5 different diagnostic settings. So this same Key Vault generating the same logs could send to 5 different locations. If that's 3 different workspaces and a storage account and Splunk or something else, or if it's 5 workspaces, like that doesn't matter. It's just you have the possibility to do it. Just keep in mind though that duplicating logs like that, it could be useful, it could be a requirement, but it does also up the cost. So something fun we could do is we could do a keyvault.sh, and I have a little bit of a script here where I can say I want to do some operations against the Key Vault demo for video. So I just want to make sure that I'm going to generate some logs. So if I bring up my terminal and clear this, and if I run Key Vault sh, I'm basically setting a secret, showing it, listing it, deleting it, everything to like generate logs. So back in the portal, this is also important. Like log ingestion can take, it usually takes about 5 minutes. So if I If I go to my workspace and I go to the tables, for example, I'm not going to see anything yet, like it's just the workspace default ones. And that's because it takes a while. So like the proper TV chef that I am, I have actually prepared another workspace and ran the same script against this one. So this one should have generated logs, and we can see that if I go into the tables here, I have a bunch more stuff basically. And then we can head into the logs and actually do like the manipulating. So this is kind of like the step 3 in the progression chart that we showed. So here we have a bunch of things, and the stuff we are interested in right now is the table that's called Azure Diagnostics. So if I just run a query against this one, I do get some information. I think if we bump this up to the last 3 days, I have a little bit more. So here you can see the resource provider is Microsoft.Key Vault, and I can see that the resource in question is the Key Vault. So not the key vault we created, but one I created before, just to have some logs to show you. And then you can see we have a different bunch, like a bunch of different operation names. So vault, get, key, list, and more. And I can like manipulate this list. So this is a lot of information right now, but we do have, so the language is custom query language, which is what I'm writing here, where we can manipulate the results we get. So here I could do Azure Diagnostics, where the operation name starts with, let's say, key. I want to see key operations. That is just the one. I can see I have a category group. I can see that I'm working still with this key vault, and the operation name is key list. Or maybe I don't want to see that, so maybe I do like not equal to key list, and then I get everything else. Maybe like I don't want to see the policy evaluations. That doesn't really matter to me. I could change the query I already have, or I can add on to this where I can say where the category should be audit event. And then I get to filter this list even further. I do have another video on my channel that covers Azure Resource Graph, and that is also something you query with this same language. So I would highly recommend you check out that video. I can leave a link to it in the description if you want to delve further into like the manipulating of logs and the queries and the search results and all of that good stuff. Now it's time for step 4, which is application insights. And the thing we've done for now is like we have worked with Azure resources and we've worked with logs generated by the platform. But a big thing about using the cloud is that you want to host your applications in the cloud. And your applications, if it's written in Python or C# or Go or whatever language you're using to create your applications, you may have application-specific logs. So perhaps if you are building a web shop, you are auditing whenever someone browses a certain thing, like a certain product, or you have a login page where you are tracking who is logging in from where, someone asks for a password reset, like a bunch of things, like the sky's the limit. But those logs are not available to us in the platform, so how do we deal with them? And here we want to use something that's called Application Insights, which is, as you can see, Azure Monitor Application Insights is an open telemetry feature of Azure Monitor. And many of the guys, many may think, well, Azure Monitor, I'm thinking more about metrics, and Application Insights is a lot about metrics as well, but it does also connect to a workspace, and we can also use it for logging. So if we do track these logs in our application code, we can send them and we can view them in our Application Insights as well. This is not a deep dive into Application Insights. This is just like an 80-20 on this, just so you are aware. But to simulate this, I have gone ahead and deployed a web application that we're going to want to hook up to our Application Insights. And we do have our code for this. So we have an app service plan, which is basically the compute unit that is hosting our application. So it could host one or more applications. Right now, we only have one web application, which is Microsoft.web/sites. And we're not going to care too much about the configuration of these for now. We are going to be interested in tracking and logging our application. And for that, we want to use a new resource then, so that we're going to make sure we use App Insights. So the type here is actually, you can search for component, and you're going to get a Microsoft Insights component. The name, I like that as a name. I should be good citizens though and make sure we use string interpolation here. So we want to use var environment, location short logging demo, App I is the prefix for application insights. The parent ID, this just gets tossed into our resource group, and the location is fine like that. So let's specify a body block here. And we do have some required properties. So the application type, we can just set this to web for now. The other thing I want to say is I'm going to say workspace resource ID. And I want to say that we're going to use, again, the log analytics workspace that we use. So this just serves the function of hosting the logs for us, basically. And it is complaining. I guess it wants us to set a kind. That should be set to web as well, I think. There's a bunch of more things you can set here, but I don't think I am interested in that for now. So let's see if we can deploy this. So we'll run an apply. For sake of time, I'm just gonna wing it and run the apply and auto approve. Not recommended to do in a production setting or in your real work, but we are living in a fairy world right here. So we were successful in creating this. So now we have our shiny new application insights. And what we could do is we could come to our web application. We could go to application insights and we can turn it on. So I want to enable this and I want to use an existing application insights resource. So I have one here. I'm just going to apply this. You can configure this in Terraform within the site config block, but for sake of time, we're just going to do this manually for now. And then it's connected. So now I can go in and see application data. I have some basic things at the front end here, which I can see failed requests and server time, server requests and availability. So what would be fun is if we open another tab, then I want to go into my web application. I want to open the website. I'm going to refresh this a bunch of times. Here's a moment for you to practice your Swedish if that's not your native language. And let's also come in and do a restart of the web application as a whole. Do some more refreshing. And then we can come back and we can actually do live metrics of our application insights. And we get a cool countdown. I guess it didn't want to go all the way down, but this eventually should start messing some metrics and statistics for us. And we can see here there are a few things happening in some graphs. I think we can do better. Okay, now we can see we're getting, like the graphs are bumping up a little bit, the incoming requests, like things are happening. But then we do have good things under failures. Here we can actually track these things. So the request count, it should actually update since I've sent so many requests to it, but this is a place you would go for your application insights to look at things if you are, for example, tracking failures within your application code, or you're tracking certain audit events within your application code. These ones can get sent to here as well. And we can also use the view in logs. So here we can see things of that nature. We could see failed request counts, and we get like a pre-baked query here. But then we can see here under the main blade, the workspace that's connected is our log analytics workspace that we created previously. But yeah, so this is what you would use if you want to capture logs and metrics outside of the realm of resource specific logs. So this is like a must-have addition to that. Okay, but we want to move on to step number 5, which is, this is all fine and well for a single resource, but like I alluded to in the beginning, what if we need to deploy this at scale? Like, we can't do this configuration manually for each and every resource. What if we have 1,000 resources? And that is where we'd use Azure Policy. So in the portal, if we search for policy and we can go to definitions, we could search for something like audit. We want to say the definition type should be an initiative. And so here we have, for example, enable audit category group resource logging for supported resources to log analytics. There is one for Event Hub as well. I think there's also one for Azure Storage, but we are interested in the one for log analytics. So this is a policy initiative, and what that means is it's a big policy that contains a lot of policy definitions. So here are all the definitions. These are all the types of resources that are going to support audit logs just out of the box for you. Not all resources are in here, so that's very important. Like, some resources may have to be configured manually by you, but a lot of resources are in here. So we have 5 parameters that we need to set ourselves with some default values. So it's going to create a diagnostic setting with this name, set by policy log analytics, so we can identify that this is coming from policy. If you remember, I set mine to be called set by code. And then we have the resource location list, and the default value, this is just going to say we're going to use any location, and the effect. So deploy if not exist. This means that if we do have resources that are not compliant, meaning they don't have the category group enabled and sending these logs to a log analytics workspace, deploy if not exist is going to use a user assigned managed identity or a system assigned managed identity in Azure to configure this for us. Hence why we can do this at scale. And the massive thing about policy is that it inherits down. So if I apply this policy at the root level here, it's going to be applied for all my subscriptions under this management group. So think if you had one management group with 1,000 subscriptions. If you assign the policy at the root level, it's going to make sure that this gets assigned to all these subscriptions. So we'll go into definitions, we'll search for audit and say initiative, and we can grab the log analytics one, and then it's about assigning the initiative. And then I can set a few different things. So the parameters that are interesting for me is the log analytics workspace. Which workspace do I want the policy to configure when it goes in and configures resources? And then I can select mine here in the list. So I could choose the one I just created, log dev se logging demo. I could go in here, go to remediation. Since this is a deploy if not exist, it's going to create a managed identity and it's going to give it the permissions of log analytics contributor at the scope that we're assigning it to. So if we do have a subscription that is outside of this scope, the managed identity does not get permission over that subscription. It does also not evaluate the resources. It's only going to evaluate the resources at the level it's at and below. And then I can do review and create, and I can create this. So once this has been assigned, I want to come back to compliance, and then I can look at the assignment I just created here, and it's going to evaluate. So right now I don't know if it's going to find anything, but if you had a bunch of resources that did not have this diagnostic setting, streaming it to the workspace that you've set up, it's going to be marked as non-compliant. You can go into it and you can say remediate. So that's a really nice feature. All right, we are almost at the end of the video. I did mention though I was going to provide a bonus tip, and if you stayed this far, you really deserve this bonus tip. It's been a long video, but we have covered Azure resources and the resource specific logs. We have also covered application logs, but you can actually log other things. So if I come to my subscription, for example, I have activity logs. In here, I can see activity logs for my subscription whenever things happen, and I can see who made it and what did they do. And there is actually an export activity log function. And here I can see a bunch of categories I can use. So I can add a new diagnostic setting. Maybe I want to see security and administrative. I don't care about recommendations. I want to see alerts. I want to see resource health. Say this is activity log sub for subscription. Send this to my log analytics workspace as well. And save. So that has been saved. So if I come back here, I can see I have a diagnostic setting here for this as well. But we are not finished there. We can also send logs for Entra. So if I go to my Microsoft Entra section and I go, there's this diagnostic setting here as well. Audit logs, sign-in logs, a bunch of things with service principal, 365 logs, and it's the same thing. I can go in and select which ones I want. So maybe sign in and audit logs and enriched Office 365 audit logs, whatever that means. Say Entra logs, send to my workspace, and save this as well. I do have to mention though, a big caveat with this is to be careful. Just because you can log certain things doesn't mean you want to do it, because all of this is going to add to your cost of logging for your environment. So maybe some logs are things you want to track, but perhaps you don't want to track them for a year or 90 days, then you could set the retention for the workspace to much lower. There is also the possibility for you to go into your log analytics workspace and you could set a daily cap if you don't want it to go insane. So if some misconfiguration happens and all of a sudden you gather a bunch of logs, you have a fail-safe of a daily cap where it's not gonna keep ingesting logs and just add to your bill. Make sure you configure consumption alerts. That's the extra bonus tip. Guys, that's gonna wrap up the video. I have more videos on my channel covering infrastructure as code, going more in depth into Terraform, in depth into certain different things in Azure. So have a look at the channel, you may find something interesting. And in the meantime, I would be super excited if you were to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.